sometimes I look at my shots and I think, well, it's a far more artistic thing for me than it is technological.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to another Forest Frame with Paul Cunningham. And tonight we've got another landscape photographer on. In this case, it's a woodland photographer, just like myself. And we've got Martin Lijinsky. Martin is from Reading. He's a teacher, very creative individual. And I've known him from Facebook now for a good 3-4 years, possibly. And I've been sitting back and watching his work. And for the hell of it, I don't know why this man is not doing workshops or being on YouTube, but let's say he's a humble man. He knows what he's doing. Very creative individual. Hi, good evening, Martin. Thanks for coming on. And I was really quite happy you said yes when I asked you the other couple of days ago there. So tell me, Martin, before we go into the first question, just tell me about how it started and the story of you and your photography.
Okay. Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a slightly unusual story, really, which is that I'm a music and piano teacher. Played the piano from a child, and when I got to about 17, I took a big long break from it just through all kinds of circumstances. I was away from it for about 20 years, and in that time, I was actually working as a French polisher, which was my trade, my own business. And one of the things that I had to do in the sort of refinishing process was use an air-compressed operated spray gun, which I did for many years. Anyway, when I came out of the trade to become a piano teacher, I returned to the piano very seriously, and I was considered to be a very good pianist, classical pianist. But I noticed quite soon after coming back to it that I started experiencing a problem with my right hand, in as much as my index finger started curling towards the palm of my hand uncontrollably. Anyway, This went on for a long, long time, and eventually I got some professional help through doctors, hand specialists and all kinds, and I was eventually diagnosed with a condition known as focal dystonia, which is actually a neurological condition, but it affects you physically. And basically what happens is the signals that the brain sends to the hand, the muscles that operate the fingers work in an opposite way. And so the cause movement disorders in the fingers, which for piano playing was just completely a no-no. It just wasn't going to lead to any success. And the process of it got worse. The whole experience of it got worse until it became clear that I had a really serious problem, and it became quite a depressive state in terms of my state of mind, because I had lots of ambitions for my piano playing. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, so 10 years ago, I was 49 at that time, and I had finally accepted in my mind that I just wasn't going to get over this problem. I just didn't know what to do. So I was in a quite distressed state, shall we say, inwardly. And that summer, I decided just to take myself off somewhere. So I went up to the Isle of Harris, which I'd never been to before. Just wanted to get away from everything just for a week, just go and do some walking and sort of thinking about things and working out how I could respond to this in a positive fashion. Anyway, when I was there, I happened to take my iPad with me, and I ended up, it was such a beautiful place, and I ended up taking around 900 photographs on my iPad. And I actually put some of them on Facebook at the time. When I look back at them now, I think, goodness me, I can't believe I thought that was a good photo. But the important thing was, when I came back home from that week, I realised how much I'd enjoyed taking photographs, and the landscape was beautiful. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could get myself a camera and, learn how to use it. So as I turned 50 that year, I decided to treat myself to a Nikon DSLR, just a sort of middle of the road one, which I think is now defunct. It's about 400 quid I paid for it. And then the following year, I found some professional photographers up on the Isle of Mull, where I decided I'd go for a couple of weeks, and booked in to do some workshops. And I just absolutely loved it. And I realised just from doing a couple of days of workshopping that, firstly, there was an awful lot to learn, but the most important thing was I really, really enjoyed it. And I loved being out in the wilderness. The Scottish landscapes were just to die for. And that's how it all started. So the loss of my gift as a pianist was the opportunity for the birth of a new experience, which is photography. And so for the last 10 years, I've just put everything into it, including my money, done lots and lots of workshops, some of which have been absolutely brilliant and others not quite so brilliant. And of course, going out myself and getting my own experience. And I've also managed to travel abroad a lot to various locations. And taken some photographs in lots of different countries, and so that's really how it all started.
Lovely. And we'll all see some of these images, guys, later on. So obviously Martin's here to be questioned about woodland photography, as we're woodland photographers. Both of us have a passion with woodland. And one of the things I'll ask people, of course, is, can you kind of share why you became interested in woodland photography, particular woodland? Because I know you do other aspects of photography, but why woodland?
Yeah, great question. So for a long time, I was just doing landscapes and seascapes, and it was actually another visit to Scotland. I think I'd just come off the Skye Bridge. I was coming back home. I think I've been on the Isle of Skye for a week, and I decided to photograph the Five Sisters of Kintail.
Oh, yeah.
So when I came back down the road, having taken a couple of shots, I parked up because there was some really lovely views to be had looking in a different direction. I just noticed this bank of trees. And there was one particular tree that stood out to me. And I looked at it, I thought, oh, that'd make a good photograph. And I'd never thought about trees before, other than ones that appeared, in landscape vistas. So anyway, I took this picture, and when I got back, I sort of played around with it in Lightroom and what have you. And I don't know, there was something about it that there was a mystery about it, a certain sense of mystery. There was a thing about, how long's this tree been here for? What's it seen in its lifetime? And I suddenly found myself really drawn to trees, and that's where it all started. And it was that one shot that sparked my interest in woodland photography. And I didn't know anything about woodland photography. I didn't even realise people specifically specialised in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think a lot of people are inspired by other people in woodland as well, so like pioneers. We call them pioneers, Simon Baxter, etc., who kind of put it to the limelight and platforms like YouTube. Because we're all pretty much gravitating to YouTube. But what the purpose of this interview tonight is, guys, there is a lot of good YouTubers out there, and no disrespect to them, but there's equally a lot of good photographers out there who don't get the respect they deserve. And things like Martin and a few other people I can name who may come onto the podcast soon, it's important to see their work and hear their story. And certainly it's quite an inspiring story, as Martin talked about, the days of playing piano, etc., and his influence into woodland photography. Martin, so just in regards to, I don't know about you, but I tend to enjoy woodland so much that I take an interest in trees. What types of trees do you look for to photograph?
Yeah, it's another great question. Well, actually, I don't, in a way. I think there is a particular forest that I go to near where I live. So I'm down here in Reading, as you've already mentioned. So we've got Savernake Forest, which is ancient woodland, which is probably about between 30 and 40 miles to the west of Reading, before you get to Marlborough. And the way that I discovered Savernake was I discovered the wonderful Paul Mitchell. Who you've heard of, who is an absolutely wonderful woodland photographer. Yes. And I booked on a workshop with him. A one-day workshop. This is probably going back about 5 years. This was probably, I guess, a year or so after I'd become interested in woodland photography, maybe a year or two. And I'd started doing a bit, but I realised I needed some advice and some help because I didn't feel my woodland shots were that good. So Paul, at that time, well, in fact, he still does, was doing a lot of workshops in Savernake. So I got in touch with him. He said, come and do a day one-to-one in Savernake. So I thought, great. So I went to Savernake and was just amazed at this wonderful expanse of woodlands and loads of different places within the woodland that you can go to because it's pretty large. And he took me around for a day, and I got some fantastic shots, and I learned so much from that. So that tends to be my go-to place because it's quite local. And I suppose I don't really look for specific trees. I just tend to be struck by whatever I encounter as either a scene or a particular tree that stands out. And I never really look at it and think, well, that's an oak tree, so let's take it. If it's an oak tree and it looks great in my own eyes and I think I'd like to include it, then I tend to take it. So I don't think it through quite so much in terms of the type of trees that I take. Yeah.
I mean, it's what grabs the moment, isn't it? As an artist, you look for what captures the eye and what's a good palette for a frame.
Absolutely.
That's what we strive for. So what we're going to do is we're going to interrupt the questions, guys, and we're going to put some images up. But as you probably noticed, we've been overlapping images as well. So we're going to look at three particular pictures just now. And I'm going to ask, we're going to let Martin talk. Let him talk through the images.
Okay, so this image is a recent image that I took. I went for a return visit to Glen Affric with a couple of very good photography friends back in October last year.
Uh-huh.
And we've been the year before. And in fact, I'd completely forgotten about this image. I was looking through my Glen Affric images just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I came across this one. I thought, oh my goodness, I meant to process this and I just didn't even think about it. I don't know.
Oh.
I did some other ones which I printed, but when I saw this again, I thought, oh yeah, I've got to edit that and stick it on Facebook, which I duly did. But this one, we had some beautiful conditions. So it was we had quite a bit of rain while we were up there on certain days. And in actual fact, I can't remember, I don't think it was raining when I took this one, but it has got a slightly misty effect. But I think what really drew me to it was firstly, the shape of the tree. And I particularly like the branch on the left-hand side that's hanging down at the bottom there, and the branches that sort of shoot off there. And I love the tree also on the far right there, that's in the distance a little bit, that's helping to frame, and plus the ferns in the foreground. And that one in the middle, I wasn't quite sure about it. At first, I was a bit distracted by it, but then I thought, well, actually, it's part of the scene, and it couples up quite nicely with the tree in the far background where you've got the water behind it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bit of river flowing through around the back there. But I just liked it. It was almost one of those sort of by accident shots in as much as I discovered it after I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah.
But I really do quite like it. And the textures in the bark as well. We're up on a hill there, so the road had come up. I think I just saw it and I thought, yeah, that'll be okay. And I set the shot up and just took it. So, yeah.
It's a beautiful shot. And it's lovely, the bracken. Obviously the autumnal bracken, which can last for up to the winter, that colour, as you know, just makes a picture as well. The frames is beautiful for this image.
The colours in Glen Affric were just amazing. I went the year before on a workshop with Mark Banks, he's a good friend of mine from up in Yorkshire. And he actually said to me before we went, he said, the colours up there, you won't believe it. They are just to die for. And he wasn't wrong. I've never seen awesome colours like it. So this year I decided to return with a couple of friends, one of whom was actually on the workshop with me the year before as well. So we knew the area a little bit, and it was nice to go back and reacquaint ourselves. But a lovely location.
Yeah, Glen Affric, I've been there a couple of times, and really, I think that pretty much part of Scotland is a lot of photographers kind of gravitate to there because of the colours, and you can see why. But certainly you got it justice, and what a tremendous oak tree. Yeah, he's an old one, isn't he?
Yeah, certainly is. Yeah.
Cracking.
Okay. So this shot was on the same trip. It's actually Glencannick, which sort of runs, I think it runs alongside Glen Affric, or sort of parallel, rightly. And so myself and my two friends who I was with, we decided we'd go and explore it because we hadn't seen it the year before, didn't quite know what to expect. So we drove a certain way and sort of parked off the road, and then we could hear the water and had a dip down and found this beautiful spot. And I have to be honest and give my two friends credit for this, because they actually found this location first. I was actually shooting elsewhere whilst they'd made their way down to the river. So I joined them later, but I think we all took pretty much the same shot. It's just such a beautiful view. And I just loved it. So we were sort of standing on a rock shelf, if you like, tripod quite low, and quite an interesting thing, and I only spotted this when I processed the image. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out, but if you look in the very bottom right-hand corner, I could make out what appeared to me to be the impression in the water of a dog. If you look at the black, there's like a black area which is his nose, and there's a couple of eyes, and it looks like, if you look at the sort of rock that's protruding off towards the left-hand side and going up towards the middle, it looks like he's got a bone in his mouth. And you can just see the outline of his head above those eyes. I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm the only person in the world.
No. It's open to interpretation, but certainly I can see that as well.
I do have this weird, I don't know if it's a gift or a habit or what it is, but I have this weird thing about, I don't know, seeing things like animals and stuff within pictures. I think there's a name that you give to it. There's some people see things like that it's really quite bizarre, actually. And I thought, that's a dog holding a bone. Yeah, it's interesting as well when you think that impression that I felt I saw there is made by the moving water as well. So of course that's all moving water over there. But the one thing I think when I was looking at it about the whole image, there's one thing that I really like more than anything, and it's just that that fallen, I think it's a slim trunk on the left-hand side that's pointing up, not the middle, but it's pointing up. There was something about that, and the way that the tree on the right is kind of arching to the left, and sort of down a little bit, pointing towards that. And there's something about that relationship that really appealed to me. And then, of course, you've got the standing tree to the left-hand side with the sort of gold leaves on it there.
I do like that.
Three main components that I really liked about that. And it was just a beautiful location. We spent quite a while there. I think it's also one of those compositions where, in a way, you don't really have to do too much because the composition has just made itself in terms of the way nature's arranged everything. And it's one of those where you just turn up and you literally don't have to do too much, really. And it's, just
the balance to it is left and right. But yeah, beautiful. So looked at two great images, guys. We're going to move on to the next one. This is a final one.
Okay, thanks. Well, again, it's from the Glen Affric trip. So all three of these photos are from that same week. So we found this location when the friend that I was with, who was staying in the same hotel as me, we made our way out to this place, and our other friend joined us a bit later along the road down in Glen Affric. And I just had this feeling as we were driving, there was sort of quite high up sort of ridges, and you couldn't see over them what was behind them. And I just had this sense that it might be worth stopping and just having a little wander up just to see what might be on the other side of the bit that we couldn't see.
Yeah.
So we climbed up, and just this whole view just opened up. And of course, that's just one part of the view. And we actually ended up, I think we must have spent about 4 or 5 hours just in this one location, just not going very far, but just, turning around and pointing the camera in a different direction, or looking for different compositions where we were without having to go too far astray. And what I loved about this, I loved the tree on the right. Yeah. And then the one obviously slightly to the left of the middle, and the sky as well, the colours of the sky that just add something a bit different to the colours of the bracken at the bottom there, and that sort of very light lime green in the background there. I don't know. It was just somebody actually told me when I showed it to them that they thought it looked like one of those old masters, like an oil painting. Like that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Again, I and also the way that the bracken is kind of tracking up towards the middle of the image. So there's a sort of a line in there. It's quite a wide line, but your eye kind of gets taken in through that. And I like the way the light was illuminating the trees in that sort of middle ground on the left-hand side there. But yeah, I was very pleased with that one. And this is one I've actually printed. And but again, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful spot. Absolutely lovely.
Yeah, it's picturesque. And one of the things I always tell photographers in workshop, and one of the things I tell on my channel is the sky's the enemy. Now, that's the exception to a lot of picture, especially this one. Sky's only enemy. It depends on what you're looking to do with woodlands. If you're shooting in a dense woodland, then yeah, the sky's the enemy because you're trying to capture a dense woodland. But in this kind of shot, it's the colours that make it, and you're forgiven because, as Martin said about the sky it's not oversaturated blue. You can actually see the clouds. There's a bit of overcast there, so you can see a change in weather. You see a bit of blue in the backdrop, but if you look closer, it's kind of like you see it's kind of a bit overcast. So there's a bit of structure to that, and a bit of mood to the image. My favourite trees are birch trees. But it's lovely because it's interesting, and it's not just about, it's imperfections as well. You're taking these images, and as you see what Martin's done there, he's done a great job of showing these imperfections.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, because I very rarely include sky in a woodland image, and sometimes if there's a really great composition, and you might just have to accept there's a bit of sky. I don't like those blue skies, but there was something about that. As you said, it's slightly overcast, and there's a little bit of blue. Yes. When the light came in from the left-hand side, and I thought, this looks great, and I was very happy to include the sky. The one challenge I did have, actually, and something I was a bit uncertain about, was the tree on the right-hand side. As you can see, you can't see the very top of it. And I just couldn't get the composition with the lens that I had, and it wouldn't have looked right, because if I'd have included the very top of that tree, there would have been too much sky. So, again, it's one of those things right, is this going to be okay if I cut the top of that tree off? And I wasn't sure, but I thought, well, I'm going to take the shot anyway because I really like the rest of it. But actually, once I got it on the screen, I thought, no, that's absolutely fine because it kind of leaves a little bit of mystery as to, how tall is that?
Works, yeah. So, yeah, it's a really nice shot. Cracking shot to end on to with these free images as well. Thank you, Martin, for sharing them. So, I hope you enjoyed these images as much as I have. And we'll all be putting the usual suspect links below, as we will do, everyone. And I'm sure you want to have a look at images and the socials he has. I have had the pleasure to see his images since we kind of been friends for Facebook a couple of years now, a few years. And we, photographers always like to just befriend other photographers just to see their images. But what kind of friendship builds up for the years, of course. We don't just do it for images, So, Martin, I was going to ask you, this is a question that I always like to ask photographers, and regardless of what type of photography you do, what genre or whatever, but regards to yourself, and obviously you've come to a point in your life when you look at your images and you've got the plaudits, you see people enjoy your images, etc. What advice would you give your younger self based on what based on what you know about the Woodlands now, and when you first started, what advice would you give your younger self in photography? Will it be younger or older? Doesn't make a difference because I started when I was older too. So what would you give yourself advice?
Pick up a camera when you're 20 instead of 49 and get going a lot earlier so you can enjoy more years of it. I think that would be the thing. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was younger, I had a camera when I was, when I was a sort of teenager. And of course, all film camera. And I found, because I'm not particularly technically minded, so I find the technical aspects of photography pretty difficult, to be honest. And, sometimes I look at my shots and I think, well, it's a far more artistic thing for me than it is technological. So I found understanding photography when I was much younger, in my teenagers, especially with film and what have you, really difficult. And I didn't really pursue it. It was never really a hobby. It was nice to have a camera and take a few pictures of this, that, and the other, but shots were never that good. I didn't feel. And then, over the years, I've bought one of those. I think I had one of those Cool Pics cameras.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
I think I made that.
Yeah,
that's probably about nearly 20 years ago, and but I didn't use it for anything in particular. But again, I didn't really understand how to use it. And I think what's helped me is the advent of digital photography, where you can just take pictures and you can delete them off the memory card straight away. And it's probably much easier to learn the craft of photography with the equipment compared to what it was with the film. And so that has really helped me to access the hobby, I suppose. And I'm so glad it does, because it is a wonderful, wonderful hobby. And I just think being out in nature, it's a place where you can be on your own. And, I've got one friend who once said to me, when you go to these forests, don't you ever get lonely? And I'm thinking, how on earth can you get lonely?
Yeah.
I'm by myself, but the interaction with nature and, you're constantly questioning yourself about composition, you're dialoguing with yourself, you're dialoguing with the nature. There's nothing lonely about it. There just isn't. And in fact, when I go out with my two mates, very often we'll find ourselves just going off on our own within the location that we're at, or a couple of us will go off together and one will be left on their own. And it's, you don't actually need people as such. No, I would say, it's really good for the mind. It's good for your mental health, just being out there, whether it's a forest or whether it's going to Scotland to do some landscaping or, seascape, whatever. It is the most glorious hobby without any question.
Yeah.
It's really helped me a lot. I'm much better if I'm in a situation where I'm not pressured and I can just take my time. And of course, landscape and woodland is perfect for that. So I've never really been interested in taking photographs of people particularly, or wildlife. I mean, I can understand the pull of it. I really can. I've seen some amazing wildlife photographs, but a macro is another one. I tried that, and I just found you need a certain patience for that, and also to learn the craft of it. And I just decided it wasn't for me. But I found what really floats my boat, and I would always get pleasure from woodland photography. And what I need to do actually is to try and find some new locations, because you can always also get quite familiar with a place like Savernake. I mean, it is massive, but you start getting to know the spirit of the place, and that can become familiar.
Yeah.
And I think it's important just to try and get out. But we're seduced by certain locations, and it's very hard to divorce yourself from those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And not to return. But the great thing is it's on the doorstep, and of course you photograph it in different seasons and different times of the day. It's always got something different to offer.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
I think you kind of nailed it there, what you said about scenes. You know, we always go on about technical parts of photography, and these things can be learned. But with regards to feeling, you can't teach someone the feeling. Regards to how you know, every artist, regardless what type of art, photography, or whatever genre you do, these people have that feeling to get. They make that composition. So everyone's unique. And that you've got to find your uniqueness. You can't just copy other people. We all do. We're all guilty of trying to be inspired by someone, but try cherry pick from what they do, but we don't try to copy them. One of the things that I've noticed with Martin's style, and speaking to Martin now, of course, your style is you're quite true to yourself in regards to the type of images. Your post processing is very consistent. You don't drastically change it or anything. So woodland photography and post-processing can be quite difficult. And I was going to talk about focal length, etc. But I mean, I'm guessing in regards to your focal length, you're quite happy just to see how you feel at the time when you're using your camera. Is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think again, for me, focal length is one of those more technological sides of it, because you're talking about measurement and stuff like that. And you know, those types of things are things I've often found quite difficult, not just in photography, but in other aspects of life. So
yeah.
I just go out. I've got the two lenses. I tend to use my 24-70 and my 70-200. Nice. I'd say that the 70-200 is probably the one that I used most in the forest, but occasionally I'll use the 24-70. So that's really, they're the only two considerations that I have. And so I just tend to walk around, and I'm not thinking of focal length at all. I'm just looking at scenes and I'm thinking, you know, oh yeah, that looks like that could be a nice picture. The other thing as well that I've learned to do, and it took me a while to learn this, is to not just get the camera out straight away. Although I still do that sometimes, I have to be honest. But sometimes when you see a nice scene that you see immediately when you're confronted with it, it's really important just to walk around the back of it and look at it from different angles, because there might be a better view. And again, we tend to be seduced by the immediacy of the composition as we encounter it, and so we're drawn to it. But sometimes, because you can always go back to that part, that spot, if you like, and take that picture. But there might be something better. And I think if you can experiment and just take a bit more time, you might end up with a much better image, or something that you wouldn't have seen if you hadn't have explored it from a different angle. I've been much better at that. But yeah, regards focal length, it's not something I really think about, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer. I think, I don't know if you've seen my latest vlog, but I went out with a 14 to 24 mil old Nikkor lens. And it was a challenge I set myself, because when someone said to me, could you go out and do some photography in the woodland with no canopy, with a super wide lens? And I tell you one thing, failed miserably. So guys, it's that's a challenge. I was just a bit of mockery of that. But all joking aside, as Martin says, it's the feeling you get. So, you know, pack a couple of lenses into your bag and see what it takes you, because you don't know until you rock up to these places. You will feel different from what you probably had in your mind. If you have any preconceptions, believe me or not, don't take them in your head. Just try to get rid of them. The preconceptions you'll fail miserably if you're looking to get a certain picture, unless you've seen the composition before and it's a different type of, say, conditions in the weather. But as Martin says, each day is different. You know, you're going to feel different, and seasons help, of course. So if you visit the same local woodlands, that's quite handy in a well, because you visit that local woodland, you know the compositions, you can get there fast, you know what the weather's, if the weather's going to be good, like mist, etc. You know, you don't have to go and scout these places. You can get there, get the image, and get back to your bed if you're going back to bed. But what's your next step in photography journey for yourself?
I think I'm always looking to improve my compositions for myself. I'm not a big one for, I've never done a photography competition or tried to get any kind of a qualification or anything like that, because of why I started it. It was solely for me. It's lovely when people make nice comments on Facebook or Instagram. And that's really the only places I post my images. I don't have a website. I keep thinking perhaps I ought to make one, but so it's really for me. And as I was as a pianist, and all the other things that I've done in my life, I am a bit of a perfectionist, knowing that that can never be achieved. But I think if you want perfection, if you aim for perfection, then what that does is it keeps you on the edge of trying to get the best that's possible. And I remember a piano teacher who was a concert pianist, a performing concert pianist, once said to me, "Your best should be so good that your second best will do." You can apply that to anything. And so I'm always trying to get the best according to my own knowledge and my own experience. And it's not about whether there's a photographer that's better than me, of which there are thousands and millions probably, or whether I'm not as good as other people or whatever. That doesn't matter. It's only about me.
Sure,
and I'm trying to satisfy myself, because very often I'm disappointed with images. I get them back on the computer. I think, wow,
yeah, same here.
It's a lot better on the camera, on the back of the camera than it is on here.
Yep.
I can tell you, for all of the nice images that people might think I've taken, there are thousands that I've discarded and that I've realised are no good. But of course, they're a good tool for learning. That teaches you, if you keep those, because you can think, well, yeah, I needed to look more deeply when I was in the location for that composition, or things like that. You can get tips from your own, not failures, but your own disappointments, if you like, of images that have been taken. So I think for me, it's a very personal journey. It really is a personal journey. I'd love to be in a position. I'd love to share what knowledge I have got, but I don't think I'd ever be in a position of offering workshops, because I don't actually think that I know enough all round to be able to justify offering that. But if anybody ever wanted to come out because they wanted, to share some experiences, that's a different thing.
Yeah, of course.
I'd love to do that. But I've got a few trips planned this year, because it was my 60th birthday in November, so I've decided to push the boat.
Congratulations when it comes.
Actually, I got four trips planned this year. I'm going off to the Isle of Harris again in February with a friend, and then Faroe Islands at Easter, which has been on my bucket list for a while, and then back up to Scotland for 2 weeks in October for the autumn. I've got some nice trips planned, and it's always exciting, because I always think to myself, right, what can I get today, and see if I can improve and try to look for different things. So
yeah, exactly. And and that's it. I mean, just get yourself about, and as if you can invest in the time and you can invest in the traveling, that does help. Even guys just shooting your local woodlands, until you get so sick of it that you know every corner, nook and cranny, and you can try to work the compositions. Helps you so much. It does. It really does help you. So Martin, what can you tell the viewers where they can find you? I know I'm going to put the links there, but just to speak out loud, what platforms are you on social media?
Yeah, so really it's just Facebook and Instagram, to be honest. So I just go under my name, Martin Lijinsky. I think I've got a different one for Instagram, but if you type it into there, I'll come up there.
Usually that's the case, yeah. Guys, we'll put the links below, so just click onto the links and you'll get directed straight to it. Give them a like, give them a follow, whatever platform it is, and just invest a bit of your time to look at his work. Really beautiful work, and looking at more woodland photographers will teach you more about your craft, and it helps you manipulate images and what you want to do with things. And I did say, like, copying people is not good, but cherry picking from ideas is good as well, because that helps you. I guess you the principles of woodland photography, and the principles are, as we all know, is trying to get things right in the frame, avoids distractions and so forth. We've seen that tonight. We've seen a good guest. We've seen a man who's being very candid in responses to questions we've gave him. Certainly a very creative individual. Martin Lijinsky, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on. And if we ever invite you in the future, we'd be interested to come back on.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to. I love sharing experiences, and I think that's important, because that's how we learn. It is how we learn. And I look at a lot of photographers that I know who aren't professional or aren't necessarily well known, but they take amazing images, and in a way, you almost want to talk to them more. Well, not more than the professionals, but they've got a story to tell too. Their journey started somewhere, and as I said, my journey's perhaps a slightly unusual one, but I'm very proud of it, and it gives me a lot of pleasure, and that's important.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it was inspiring as well, and it's showing people that obviously we all have like some things will work out when in your own careers and things in life, and some people are just happy just to sit in one place. Don't be afraid to try other things. As Martin told you, he needed something in his life, and photography did give him that. And I think any type of art form is a creative outlet. Anything. That could be music, it could be art, it could be photography or anything else. So it's important to hear from all different types of photographers. And tonight, certainly, Martin, thank you. You've certainly given us that experience of hearing your take on it as other Woodland photographers. What we're going to do next week, guys, I'll be probably back out in the Woodland again. That'll be a week on Sunday, every second week, as you know. And we'll get another Woodland photographer on a couple weeks after that as well. Martin, as I say, thank you for coming on. And any advice for new upcoming photographers, apart from don't spend too much money?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say don't spend too much money, because unfortunately, I think that's the thing that you have to do. But I'd just say, if you like being outside and you're interested in taking some nice pictures, I mean, look at other people's work and be inspired by that.
Yeah.
And just get out there and take some. Because the one thing that, the landscape, the trees, it never complains when you're looking at it. It's just there for us to appreciate. And it's there waiting to be photographed and experienced. And, to be able to share that with other people so people see those images.
Yes.
And even just looking at a picture sometime can do something for your mental health, looking at a nice image. And but it's just great. I just love being out there and doing that. And I just recommend it to anybody. I think it's the most fabulous hobby. I've made two fantastic friends, the two guys I go out shooting with, who I never would have met but for this. And also, a couple of professional, probably 4 or 5 professional photographers who have become, really good friends as well, through going on their workshops. Yeah. And it's a great world to be in, and lots of wonderful people are in it. And yeah.
So it's bye-bye for myself and bye-bye for Martin.
Thanks.
Good evening. Enjoy your week of photography. Take care. Cheerio, bye.